for the deep dive, we were wondering, all right, it's 20 years since Kill Bill Volume 1. Next year is 20 years since Kill Bill Volume 2. How do we do this? So what do? We record it on New Year's Eve. So we're recording this on the 20th anniversary of Kill Bill Volume 1. You'll be hearing it in 2024, which will be the 20th anniversary of Kill Bill Volume 2. So in this one episode, we're doing the whole bloody affair. It's how Quentin sees it. It's how we're going to talk about it. We are talking Kill Bill. There it is for the rest of this episode. Everything you wanted to know, and probably a lot of stuff you didn't want to know about Kill Bill.
Well, I mean, all about Kill Bill.
What about him?
It's it's a movie about the bride on her revenge tour after getting left for dead by her former colleagues, the Deadly Viper Assassination Squad, and she's on her revenge tour to kill all of them, including Bill. This is one of the Tarantino just absolute masterpieces. The first time I saw it was in the summer of 2005, I guess, and we rented the first one, Terry and I, and then he was away somewhere, and I rented the second one right when it came out, and so I ended up renting it twice that month because I was like, this is probably the greatest movie I've ever seen. That's what I thought when I first saw Kill Bill Volume 2, and part of me still feels like that might be the truth. I love everything about Kill Bill. When I was watching it this time, it'd been years, but I was like getting to the point where I like take notes when I'm watching the movies for our deep dives. I was pausing it and taking notes on the upcoming scene. Like, because I know this movie so well, especially Volume 1. I didn't realize I'd seen it that many times, but I totally have seen Volume 1 a lot, too. This movie is all over my Power Rankings list. I have it on my MTV Movie Awards thing we did. Minor Tarantino characters ×2. I have it, including number 1. American movies with 0 Oscar nominations, number 1. Sympathetic villains, number 1. Characters you want to be quarantined with. Beatrice, straight-length performances, and the uses of song and film. You could put Kill Bill on basically any category, and I kind of do. I've always loved Kill Bill. I think Volume 2 by itself might be Tarantino's best movie, but it's tough. Like as one big saga, I've never actually watched the whole 4 hours all back to back. Maybe I should do that sometime. But Kill Bill is bliss, and I wish I had seen it in a theater because I think I'd probably like it even more.
Yeah, I remember that summer when we watched it, and I loved Volume 1. And then I remember, I don't know where I went, but I went somewhere, and I get home, and Todd's like, dude, Volume 2. And then we had to like sit and watch it like within an hour of me getting home, I think.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It feels, watching it back, it feels so not Tarantino in some ways. Like it is different than any of his other movies. But yet it still has the Tarantino charm and quirks to it. It feels also possibly his most modern movie at times, but also it's a throwback in so many ways too. So it's kind of this interesting piece in his filmography. I recently was listening to one of our old podcasts, and one of the lists I had this on, and Todd and I both had it on, was movies without any Oscar nominations, or American films with no Oscar nominations. Yeah. And I mentioned in there that this, Death Proof, and Reservoir Dogs are the only Tarantino movies with no Oscar nominations, which is just insane. I mean, Reservoir Dogs makes sense because it's his first, and Death Proof obviously makes sense, but how this was completely ignored is ridiculous.
Maybe if it was a 4-hour movie, then it would have had a better shot, because then they wouldn't have had.
Which is what he wanted. He wanted it to be, and he still counts it as one movie and not 2 volumes. But yeah, what about you guys? What's your experience with Kill Bill?
All right, I mean, this is my 2 cents here. This is only my second time watching it. I actually had owned these, but I had to take the plastic off of them. So that's to watch this. So
lose a point for that.
This is true. I'm rewatching it. I love Volume 1. I think that's my favorite out of the 2. Volume 1 kind of goes up there to the over the top violence stuff that I really like as well. I like the cat and mouse game that Volume 2 does have in it as well. It definitely feels it was a very unique experience watching kind of back to back because of they do flow and they feel like two different movies, but also part of a bigger plot as well. I enjoy the character. I think Uma Thurman is like phenomenal in this as well. Can't think of a better performance that she's been in, and I definitely enjoy a lot of just how violent and in your face with it is. I think it should have been nominated for editing because I think this is definitely how quickly paced and how fast moving it is. It should have got something there. So it didn't feel like 4 hours watching it, but it was definitely a good experience to go back and revisit and realize how awesome these are. And because on the website, I only gave these 3.5 stars. So I have updated it in our recent update. So I'm appreciative of watching it. So these are definitely 4-star movies for sure.
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to see these movies in the theater when they came out. Now, what's interesting about it is that Volume 1 was released in December of 2003. Volume 2 was in April of 2004. Between those times, I turned 17 years old. My parents had zero interest in seeing this movie. They really didn't like hyper-violent movies. They didn't like me seeing those kind of movies. So I actually had to wait to go by myself when I turned 17. So I went the weekend that Volume 2 was released. So I saw Volume 1 the night before, and I saw Volume 2 the next day in a theater. I'm really glad I did it that way. I was thinking about that a lot as I was rewatching it. I don't know what my reaction would have been had I just seen Volume 1 first and had to wait 3 months because completely unlike Adam, I am very much a Volume 2 person, more than a Volume 1 person. And that's one of the many fascinating things about this movie. You know, there's that great speech that Uma gives in Pulp Fiction where she says you're either an Elvis man or you're a Beatles man. That was an extended scene in Pulp Fiction too. You're either a Volume 1 person or you're a Volume 2 person. And I am definitely a Volume 2 person. Okay. I like the long, meandering, crazy dialogue. I like the long sequences, the weird stuff. Bud's boss.
Volume 2 feels more like a Tarantino movie.
It feels more like, it also feels more like a Western. I got the distinct feeling this time, watching them back to back, which I think I've rarely done. I got the distinct feeling that Quentin and Harvey had some very long conversations about how this movie was going to be released. My guess is that the first cut was probably around 3 hours and 25 minutes, maybe 3:30. And for Harvey, that would have been too long. So he said, okay, Quentin, listen, I'll make you a deal. I'll give you 2 movies that will release. And in that sense, I will give you an extra 45 minutes of shit that you can do whatever you want with. And that was sort of what my problem with Volume 1 was this time. I just kind of felt like there was too much stuff in it that really had nothing to do with anything. Now, was it bad stuff? Absolutely not. Okay. It was, I mean, it's the anime sequence, absolutely brilliant sequence. It was kind of the scene where Oren takes Boss Tanaka's head off. Brilliant sequence. I love it, but it doesn't really have anything to do with the movie. Even the scenes, like so the 2 best scenes in Volume 1 are the Crazy 88 battle sequence and the Hattori Hanzo scene. I don't really think you need a whole lot more than just those 2 scenes plus Vernita Green to get to Volume 2, which is where you want to get to. So I'm sort of the mindset that Volume 2 is somewhat a substantially better movie than Volume 1. If I'm ranking them individually as Tarantino movies, Volume 1 is probably at the bottom of Tarantino's filmography, which is, again, not to say it's a bad movie, but it's a build-up to Volume 2. Volume 2 I saw in the theater 3 times. It's the only movie I've ever seen in the theater 3 times. It was phenomenal. I mean, when the bride has Elle's eye between her toes and the audience was gasping, that was one of the seminal moments of me growing up watching movies. I deeply, deeply love Volume 2. So much so that Todd and I did have a drunken text thread one night prior to 2021. Let's just be honest, Volume 2 is the best movie ever made. When we do our stupid top 100 list, we're both going to just say, and it's given us problems because the name of our podcast is named for another 2004 movie we really love. And the problem is, deep down, I love Volume 2 a little bit more than that other movie. It was my number 1 of 2004. I still love Volume 2. I think I had it at number 13 on my all-time top 100. I don't really know if it would rank that high this time. It's interesting watching the movie. I've probably seen Volume 2 maybe as much. I don't think I've seen it as much as Apollo 13, but I know it really well in the way that Todd was maybe talking about Volume 1. It is fascinating. I think when you think about movies that changed our lives, watching them growing up, obviously didn't change Adam's life, but for me it was very impactful. And I think it's on that short list of 21st century movies that you could say make a realistic case for. This is the Citizen Kane of our lifetime. I think just in terms of the innovations of this movie, how crazy it is, how off the rails it is, how it is so only Tarantino could have made a movie like that. Virtuosic, I guess, is the word I would use. I think you could say the same thing about The Social Network or The Master or maybe Uncut Gems, but like Kill Bill to me is a Citizen Kane of this millennium, this century, and it stands, I think, as Tarantino's greatest achievement, I guess, even though it's flawed in some ways, and it was a blast to rewatch. It was like kind of going through the last 20 years of my life watching it again.
Let me backpedal on something too, and reiterate something. Actually, it's probably say better. I only watched this for the first time when I joined the podcast, so I never grew up on these movies either. So that's another thing too. So that's another thing I should also specify too. I didn't mention. So that's another thing. If I would have seen this earlier, I think this would have been pretty dang awesome, to be honest with you. And we should change the website to Kill Bill Almost Sideways.
The almost side kill.
Or Almost Kill Bill Sideways.
Uncut. Almost kill.
The uncut. Yeah. So I realized watching this this week, getting ready for this, is that I really am a Volume 1 person. I think just the world building, and I remember when Todd and I watched it for the first time, I was like, that is like the greatest cliffhanger in a movie I've ever seen. Like your daughter's still alive, and it's like, wait, you can't stop there. Like it just blew my mind, and the world building it does in that movie, it is so there's so much going on, the different like timelines that it tells through too, and being able to open it with a fight scene like that because you're not starting at the beginning and then you go back to the beginning. I mean, it's I just love how Volume 1 is put together, and then Volume 2 it feels much more like in all the other Tarantino movies, and it has a great payoff. But I remember the first time I watched Volume 2, I was like, did that payoff really live up to the hype that the cliffhanger gave it? And I still don't know if it does, because I loved the way it set everything up so much in Volume 1.
Well, but the payoff is still somehow feels like a twist, because you are set so off guard by everything leading up to her arriving at Bill. But I mean, I think Volume 2 has it has the minor characters that we all love, and I mean, Volume 1 is interesting because it is more, the colors pop more. It's more of like it's more action oriented and way more visceral. But Volume 2, it's like everything that it sets you on a different path, and it does it in a way that is fulfilling without needing to be hyper violent, and that's part of what I love about Volume 2. It's just, I mean, I because I don't think I've ever seen a movie that was like truly part 1, part 2, and done like this, and almost being different genres.
Which is so fascinating too, because I was watching it and thinking about how this was supposed to be one movie, and both movies felt so different and like completely different genres. Like you said, how is it supposed to look when it was one film? Was it supposed to be I'm sure
there's supposed to be an intermission at some point. I know, I had read that he pretty much it played the way it did, except without the scene with Sophie, and obviously the lead into Volume 2. Like, those were the things that he added to make them 2 movies. Otherwise, it would have played pretty much the same way.
Okay. Yeah, you can tell the lead in. You can tell the lead in to Volume 2 is definitely added on later.
The Sophie with no limbs is what he added in.
Apparently black toenails. I think
Red.
this movie also Red, excuse me. I think this movie is interesting in other ways too. It's like it's kind of the first in a lot of ways. Be first, be smarter, or cheat. I mean, this movie kind of did all three. But like this movie was the first of the part ones and part twos. Now it came around at the same time as Lord of the Rings, okay, but those were three distinct movies. The part one and part two
and three
thing,
distinct books.
Yeah, the part one and part two thing, I think, sort of blew up after this movie, and most prominent example is Harry Potter. My wife pointed out some odd parallels between the Hattori Hanzo sword and the wizard shit in Harry Potter. So like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I never thought of that. But this movie also ushered in where you could make a 4-hour movie. Again, not that there were many after that, and now we're in an era when there are 4-hour movies directed by Martin Scorsese. But it was okay to have a cliffhanger, I guess. And it was if you were a big enough director and if you had enough of a following like Tarantino, you could really kind of do anything, even if it meant doing something longer than a traditional movie, even if it meant doing something excessively violent, and even if it meant doing something that kind of blatantly ripped off other movies. I think in some ways, this movie, I'm not going to say it made cultural appropriation okay, but if you look at the sort of influences that he's liberally borrowing from, so much so that even Uma Thurman's costume is like the same costume as
Lee.
Japanese. Yeah, and the structure of it and the set pieces. I mean, you could definitely take Tarantino for task for being a plagiarist, and I think critics rightly did that to some extent. But when you're also 17 years old, you don't think about that sort of shit when you're watching the movie. I mean, the movie just was mind blowing. In terms of just how different, how unique it looked. And again, watching it today, maybe it's not quite the same, but just in terms of its innovation, I think it spawned a lot of not spin-offs necessarily, but people that tried to imitate Tarantino, both in terms of style and substance, but also in terms of these extremely long movies.
Yeah, I said, but he had clout, but he was coming off of a big bomb. And it took him 6 years to get this made. I don't think that he had just free reign to do whatever he wanted. I think he had Harvey, who was a fan, and I think he let him do a lot of things. Otherwise, I mean, Jackie Brown was an absolute flop, and a long flop too. And so that's part of the thing that. What do you mean debatable? It made no money
financially.
Got an Oscar nomination. Yeah, but Tarantino was a name, though. I mean,
he won his Oscar, but then he came off of a
Lone
movie
Ranger
that flopped, which is why later he goes and does Death Proof, which is a flop, and then he had to make another thing that was going to be okay, this is going to be another big spectacle that people are going to get behind. Which he did with Inglourious Bastards. I'm just saying, it took him 6 years to get this made for a reason. It's because that I don't think that it's that bankable of a thing to come out.
I disagree with that point, Todd. I would point to that Tarantino was in the wilderness, much like Scorsese was in the wilderness in the 80s, because like Scorsese trying to make The Last Temptation of Christ, Quentin was trying to make Inglourious Bastards. And this was a project that came up when he was having serious writer's block putting together Inglourious Bastards. That's why it took so long. It wasn't that he was struggling to retain some sort of notoriety. It's because for the first 3 years after Jackie Brown, he was only working on Inglourious Bastards. And that kind of led him to a rabbit hole that he couldn't get out of until he reunited with Uma. So, I mean, I think it's fair to say that maybe Jackie Brown disappointed compared to Pulp Fiction, but he was still a huge name. I mean, this was a huge Christmas release. This was one of the big Hallmark movies. This was Miramax's big movie of 2003, until they made it Cold Mountain. But I don't know if it's fair to say this was a comeback movie for Tarantino.
I think though, with the Scorseses, with the Tarantinos nowadays, is that their appeal is that they appeal to film Twitter, right? So film Twitter, if this Twitter was around in 2003, 2004, this would have been a success. They would have been gone nuts for it, because even movies like Killers of the Flower Moon, getting tons of praise from critics, but also people who have YouTube channels, who have Twitter accounts. They do love that shit. And that's something that maybe it's not very bankable. And it's not like Apple TV has a lot to do with that Killers of the Flower Moon, but with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that's an event on Twitter for people to go out and see the next Tarantino movie, to say that they saw it, that they share their thoughts on it as well. And that wasn't around in 2003 and 2004. And I think that Kill Bill. If I would have watched it back then, how old was I? It was like what? That was like 25 years ago. Well, how? That's
20.
horrible maths.
Not that long.
20 years.
We're not that old. Only
Horrible
Terry's
maths.
that old.
If I was 13 and I
Thank
saw
you, Zach.
this, like I would probably be all over this. This would be like right up my alley. At least the first, for sure, the first one. The second part, I would have to. I would probably eventually get into. But if I grew up on this, I think I would have appreciated the movie a lot more. And it could be a top 100 movie. It could be up higher up on my ranking. But I really grew up on Inglourious Bastards. That's the one I will just throw that out there before we do our ranking. That's the movie that I named my softball team after. We were the Inglourious Batters. And then we had the bat with the barbed wire on it and
That's
everything.
beautiful.
So that's the movie that I grew up on. Tarantino. Is that my favorite Tarantino? No, but at the same time, is that Twitter was really kind of helped his clout a whole lot, and people with YouTube channels who share that. And he's a very controversial director, just like Scorsese. There's people. Those movies aren't made for everybody, but people love talking about them. They're event pictures for sure, and that's something that didn't happen in 2003.
Who would Nicolas Cage play? I said Esteban.
He would definitely do the dual role thing. He would relish in that opportunity.
Oh, Nicolas Cage. Oh, yeah. I had Nicolas Cage in Volume 2 as Esteban. Yeah.
He could bring back his makeup from Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Yes.
I mean, I think it'd be fun to see him as Bill or Earl McGraw. I mean, it would be if an expanded Earl McGraw role. I'd be okay with that.
I like him as Hanzo as well. He could bring back his
Sorry,
Jiu-Jitsu
Hanzo.
character.
There you go. It's Fu Manchu.
How about just pull a men and have every single role Nicolas Cage, or at least every male role. I'd really like
That's
that.
pretty good.
I do think the McGraw would have to be directed by that scene would be directed by Werner Herzog, though. Would be my request.
Who would 90s Giamatti play?
Oh,
I thought
Charlie
this was
Brown.
obvious. Bud's boss.
No, that's too big of a role.
No, it's going to be the soda jerk. Can
He
I
just
get
has
a water?
one scene. He has one scene.
Would you
It's
say?
gonna be-
You know,
No,
you don't work
it's going to be
tomorrow.
when Beatrice walks through after she breaks out of the coffin. She walks in and says, "Can I have a water, please?" And it's the guy
Oh, that's
sitting at
it. Yeah, that's it. If we're talking 90s Giamatti, that's it.
I said the trucker. The trucker
No.
who.
Oh no, you can't do
called
that to
Giamatti.
Giamatti.
No.
Why not? I think that'd be hilarious.
He does have this sex appeal. He does. I could see Giamatti with a freaking wallet on a chain, though. I can see that.
The coffee guy's perfect. That's pretty good. I think you could maybe.
He's always a bartender though when you recast him.
That's why he's 90s Giamatti.
So why isn't he the Sid Haig character?
Oh,
that-
Yeah,
that
okay,
bartender.
that's not terrible. Yeah.
You can also have him
no,
in
he's
like.
Bud's boss. He's Bud's boss.
You can have him as
no,
deputy.
in no
usually
movie
has
has he
speaking-
ever had that much dialogue.
He
How about
totally has
Deputy
that much
Ranger
dialogue in
Edgar,
one
the
scene
son?
in every 90s movie.
Yeah, in Donnie Brasco,
Private Parts.
in the Truman Show, in
My best friend's wedding.
My Best Friend's Wedding, in The Negotiator,
Parts.
like
He
all
gets
of them.
one scene.
Did
All
we
right.
recast Larry? Did you recast Larry, Todd?
No, I mean because
Maybe
he's a minor
Giamatti.
character.
Okay.
Who would
But
Beth
he's
Grant play?
major in my heart.
Oh, yes, I had two different things. This is gonna be weird. Okay, my Beth Grant she's gonna be either the proprietor in Kill Bill Volume 1, who's like completely freaking out
that's
after
good.
the big, or she's gonna be, this is stupid. Well, Miss Harmony, I think that's gonna dumb pick, but
Sure.
Lucky,
Yeah.
Lucky at the bar. She's the one by the guy, the bartender, by Jorge
You're
Silva's
saying Beth Grant
bartender
is a
character.
stripper?
Yeah, I don't think she was ever. She was
an
never
old
young enough to
washed
play a
up-
stripper.
an old washed up person.
No wonder no one's in that strip club. Nobody in there to bounce.
I said
Yes.
Beth Grant would play Nikki's bus driver.
Nikki's
Nemo
best
Green's
friend.
Yeah, that's not bad.
That's not a bad show.
Anybody else have
Obvious-
anything? Todd, Zach?
Obviously, she'd be Mrs. Harmony. That's the only acceptable.
Yeah, I wrote down Mrs.
Even
Harmony,
if-
and she could be a female. The Edgar McGraw, she could be the female.
Is there
female
any
cop in that
woman
episode.
in this movie over the age of 40 besides Mrs. Harmony? Mrs. Harmony, we're the only family this
Well,
youngin's ever gonna need. She
Elle
could
is
live on the
definitely
fringe
over
from
40.
Oklahoma.
Yeah, Elle was like freaking Daryl
Okay,
Hannah was
over, like,
43
whatever.
when she filmed this. Yeah.
All right. What does Adam think this movie is about?
Oh god, here we go. This is gonna be interesting.
The trial for attempted murder brought on by an assassin against her former crew. Lawyer is Hilary Swank.
I said that he.
Oh,
go ahead, Zach.
Oh, I said it was about an illicit currency of money where you die after walking 5 steps, and Hilary Swank is the entrepreneuring lawyer that has to settle it in court with Sam Rockwell as her brother. He died after walking; his heart exploded after getting the bill.
I said that this was a sequel to Mr. Smith Goes to Washington for the next time he had to filibuster because he had to kill this bill.
Yes. That's funny.
Oh, a new one. What Terry thought of the movie. Gotcha.
Yeah, now there we go. Now we're getting inspired. What Terry thought of the movie. That's the winner for the Terry Award.
Alternate title.
I mean, Whole Bloody Affair.
I really like the chapter titles, like The Blood Spattered Bride, The Massacre at 2 Palms, and The Showdown at the House of Blue Leaves. I think those all sound like Yimou Zhang movies, but they're also really cool titles that the movie could have had. But Kill Bill is, I mean, it's a banger of a title.
It's a perfect title.
I went with Chicks Who Love Swords. I don't know if Adam will.
There we go.
Yes.
How many times have you seen Jackie Brown, Adam?
Twice.
Oh.
Twice.
It's more than once.
It's good.
All right. It's time to get into the big ones now. Highest war performance. Zach, you're going first.
God damn it.
Low-hanging
fruit. Pick me first for this shit.
Okay. I could
no. I'll go. But my answer is going to be my answer. So from here on out, I'm really only doing Volume 2. I already said that. Volume 1 is not interesting to me. I'm going with Michael Madsen as Bud. There. I don't even need to say a lot about it. He's perfect. You can't recast that role. He's the only actor that could play it. He made a career of performances like that. My God. When my 2004 Academy Awards, I had to go David Carradine, but Michael Madsen he's on the Mount Rushmore of Tarantino characters for me. That would have been a more interesting power ranking potentially, but it's Michael Madsen all the way.
All right. I'm next. I'm gonna go Uma Thurman. This was it's such a, like, you could tell, like, when it says that these are based on characters developed by Quentin Tarantino and Uma Thurman. I mean, it's written for her, and you can tell it is such a perfect role for her. And it was like the hardest one to come up with someone that could recast into that role because it is so Uma Thurman at that time. And I don't know if anyone else could really do it quite like that. Yeah.
Charlize Theron and Angelina Jolie 5 years later. That's my only counter to that argument, but she is great in the movie.
That's fair. But yeah, at the time, like it was her through and through. So that's my pick, is Uma. Todd?
I mean, both obviously great picks. Mine is Chiaki Kuriyama as Gogo.
Yes,
because she's fantastic, and it's clearly one of those things where Tarantino's like, okay, one of my all-time favorite movies is Battle Royale, and I'm taking the most interesting character, and it is that girl, and I'm going to write a character for her, and she is fantastic in that. Her like schoolgirl like persona, her like weird giggle thing, and she absolutely rocks it with that ball and chain. I love Chiaki Kuriyama in this, and I don't even know if you could maybe Gigi Zhang or whatever, maybe in like the late 90s or something could have done it, but I mean Chiaki Kuriyama is awesome.
Good call. Adam?
Well, take all the low-hanging fruit ones, guys. Appreciate it. The one that I had a hard time recasting really was, I think, David Carradine as Bill was good because, like, Billy Bob Thornton, I think, is kind of an inspired like today choice for it. But David Carradine is pretty awesome in that role. Never really seen him in a whole lot of stuff, but he was he definitely matched foe for foe. And when the final scene with the Truth Serum with Uma, that's where he really kind of shined and ate up all his screen time there. So David Carradine.
Yeah, I mean, anytime
for me, it was either Uma or Carradine for me because, I mean, when you can take the lead from Kung Fu, the TV show, and put him in a role like that. Yeah. What were you gonna say, Zach?
I was just gonna say, anytime you see David Carradine in a '70s movie like Boxcar Bertha, interestingly enough, Scorsese's movie, or his brother Keith, who was a great actor as well in like Nashville, all you see is Bill, or at least all I see is Bill. So I don't know if that just says what a great performance it was or how iconic it was, but it's hard to see anyone else's Bill.
Yep. All right. The Bill Paxton Memorial worst performance.
Not really a wrong answer in the highest award. Might be some wrong answers in the worst performance.
Okay, I'm going first on this one. My worst performance is the little dancing man in volume 1 in the 5, 6, 7, 8. Todd knows who I'm talking about. They pan the crowd while they're doing it, and there's this one guy who we always point to that's just like it's like, what are you doing? You are ruining the shot because you don't know how to dance and you don't know how to look. It's like in Friends when they tell Chandler to smile and he doesn't know how to on command. This guy doesn't know how to dance on command, and he shows it in that. I mean, he's on screen for like a second, but he steals the show in the wrong way in this one scene. He gives the worst performance in the whole bloody affair.
That's a good call. I forgot about that.
Todd, what do you got?
I wrote down Julie Dreyfus as Sophie. I think that she's kind of wooden, and I feel like she breaks in one scene, like when she's like translating for Oren. She like is almost like bursts out laughing. I mean, she's not bad. I don't know. I mean, every performance is great in this movie. So there you go, Julie Dreyfus.
When she gets her limb cut off, it's definitely like, would you have freaked out that much? I don't know. It's kind of weird.
I mean, you get your arm cut off, I guess.
Well, maybe, but you're part of Bill's group originally. You were like Team B compared to the Deadly Viper Assassination Squad.
She also needs to have her phone on silent.
That is true.
Gave her away.
Good point, Adam.
I'm gonna go with Mr. Jorge Silva as the bartender at the what's that, My Oh My Club or whatever that Bud works at. Yeah, he's like, yo, Bud, you're late. The boss wants to see you. Like the one line of dialogue. Yeah, not really great. They could have got anybody else to really play that role. So it's really solid like acting performance. It's really hard to kind of pick the worst one there. Though I did also kind of think Sophie too. So, but I'm gonna go with Jorge Silva as the bartender in the My Oh My Club.
Who is who are you talking about, Adam? I'm confused.
He's the bar.
Jorge Silva's got to be the bartender at Esteban's place.
No, he's the My Oh My Club.
No, that's Sid Haig.
That's Sid Haig, the judge in Jackie Brown.
Okay, then that's what I'm talking about. Then why am I
Sid
talking
Haig?
about Jorge Silva?
Come on,
well, Jorge
can't
Silva,
you tell time, Bud?
Yeah, so Jorge Silva is listed below all the hookers. Like that, he's definitely at Esteban's club.
Never mind then. Hold on, come back to me. I messed up again.
I can go.
All right, Zach.
Rethinks that terrible pick because Sid Haig is wonderful in his one line. I'm going to go with a tie between Michael Parks as Earl McGraw and Gordon Liu as Johnny Moe, because they're not as interesting as their Volume 2 characters. Johnny Moe is not anywhere close to as interesting a character as Pai Mei. Earl McGraw we've seen in 10 million Tarantino movies. Come on. So Esteban Vallejo is a once in a lifetime type character. Esteban Vallejo and Pai Mei, you want to see backstories of. Earl McGraw and Son Number One, and Johnny Moe, forgettable. I mean, honestly, I kind of even forgot that what those roles were. I knew that they had played them in Volume 1, but I don't know. That's
Johnny
the only
Moe
Volume 1.
Kicks ass though. Just stick with Earl McGraw, even though he's a great character. Just stick with that one because Johnny Moe he's like the leader of the whole group.
Yeah,
everybody else in the Crazy 88s is more interesting than Johnny Moe, including Mickey, the guy that dies first. Go-Go is far more interesting than Johnny Moe. What does Johnny Moe do? All he does is he screams, with his little. I mean, it's who cares? I don't care. Yeah, his little mask.
Okay, Edgar McGraw. That's who I will say is the worst performance.
James Parks.
Yeah.
Yeah, the son. There we go.
That's not bad.
Picking on the
one.
Parks brothers.
Yeah,
All
Giamatti
right.
played him in the 90s.
Todd, the minor character triumvirate of Amazing Larry, Charlie Duke, and Matt Damon.
So no pressure. This is probably the greatest movie all time for minor characters, right?
Well, yeah.
It's certainly
Well, I mean, like I said, my I guess I'll just say it. Esteban was my number one Tarantino minor character. We did that power ranking, so
Right.
I have to say him. And it was also my number. I think it was my number one or number two Beatrice Straight length performance of all time. Because Esteban is awesome. The line delivery that Michael Parks has, and just like how he carries himself, that is a cool character, and everything about him, obviously perfect. Matt Damon, what movie are you in? I got Go-Go Daimon as Boss Honda. He's the guy who just sticks out like a sore thumb in that board meeting or whatever it is. He's just like, okay, like I don't really get your vibe compared to everybody else's. And the minor character who causes the movie to happen is the mosquito who wakes up Beatrix.
Oh,
from her
nice.
sleep.
God
Wow.
damn it! I had
That's a
that
good
one,
one.
man. That's a great pick. Great pick. Great minds think alike.
Yes.
I like it. All right, Adam, you're next.
All right, minor character of the movie. I gotta go with Go-Go Yubari. She's fantastic. Obviously, Todd already kind of mentioned everything. The minor character that gets the movie going. It's the mosquito for sure, because that's what gets her to wake up. That's what I had originally thought. And what movie are you in? Charlie Brown.
Charlie Brown.
Yeah, that's a pretty safe answer.
Charlie Brown.
Oh.
I like it. Zach.
My minor character, Todd knows my minor character. It's Larry. I'll talk more about him in my best scene. Stickman, I'm gonna go with the guy in the
Stickman yet. Not Stickman yet.
Oh,
Charlie
okay.
Duke and Matt Damon.
Okay, so the what Damon are you in character? I'm gonna go with the Black Mamba because we didn't actually see any snakes leading up to that point. It's kind of out of nowhere, shocking, and it is a great movie pet performance that we overlooked in our pet performances. I really want to know how that happened on set. That looks like a real Black Mamba, right? I don't think anyone's going to dispute that. Like, that's got to be terrifying to be on set with one of the deadliest animals in the world, along with an elephant and a leopard. So that's impressive. And then what's the other one? Movie Maker?
Charlie Duke, Ticket Taker.
I went
Movie
with
Maker.
Paul Giamatti as the coffee guy, because she needs water. I mean, if she's buried alive, she's going to need something to rehabilitate herself in order to kill Bud and Elle, neither of which she actually does. But he's there at the right place, right time. Paul Giamatti.
Can we just stop and mention that he called it the "What Damon Are You In"?
Yeah.
Oh, did I? Well, that should be the name of it.
That should be the name of it. All right. My Amazing Larry is Go-Go. But if we're gonna go with someone else, I'll go with Nikki, Bernita's daughter, because the promise of a volume 3 starring her, it has always been out there, and I would love to see it.
And Zendaya would play Nikki, right?
She totally would.
And Maya Hawke is BB. That's the sequel.
Oh my word! Why isn't this happening? Quentin, make an 11th.
It's all happening.
Well, the girl who played BB was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I saw that she was the one who sells him the acid cigarette, which I didn't know until this time watching it.
Wow. Okay.
So that girl who probably I didn't think was acting anymore. Yeah.
Perla Haney Jardine.
All right, my movie maker is Earl McGraw, because he pauses long enough over Beatrix to be spit at by her, so that's how we know she's still alive. And if he hadn't stopped and noticed that, then she would have been buried a lot earlier in the movie. And my Matt Damon, what movie are you in? I'm gonna go with like all the bad guys in the anime sequence. Because they are like completely in a different movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quite
Either
literally.
that or Pai Mei. Feel like Pai Mei is like from a different movie at times, but the anime
At
guys.
times, yeah, he's definitely different.
Yeah, the anime guys. All right, the tripod of depravity of Stickman, Douchebag, and Most Punchable Face goes to who, Adam?
The let's see, the douchebag of the movie. I had Rocket up there because she can't
I
plunge a
did too.
toilet apparently. Uh, yeah. Well, I had. I'm gonna say Buck because he's there to fuck, and but yeah, he totally basically he's like, yeah, rape this person here, no problem. But yeah, Buck has to be up there for the douchebag. The stick man, you could go with Bud's boss Larry, but I'm gonna go with Dr. Lawrence Bell because they did have a kid, and it's 50K Fox. You probably tapped in that a couple times. Unpunchable face, you got to go with Jasper. Yeah, because he bits his tongue off in the first movie, and that's the trucker guy. Apparently, his name is Jasper.
How is his name Jasper? When did they say that?
I don't know. His name came up as Jasper when I was like looking at the actor, and I also say punchable face because
trucker.
Yeah, his thing is
he's trucker.
But somehow
the guy
I
from
found
the
out that
Happy
it was
Madison
Jasper.
movies.
I don't know. The guy, yeah.
Okay.
So
he doesn't look like a
from,
Jasper.
I know the guy from the Happy Madison movies because he's been punched several times in those movies, so it's got to go with him. The trucker.
Also, Paul Giamatti. That was one of the worst. Who said that? That was either Todd or
That was
Trey.
me.
That was one of the worst. That was one of the worst recastings I've ever heard for Paul Giamatti.
Hey, I want to see it. I'm not saying that he'd be great at it.
Wow. All right, so we're taking an intermission here, which because our host is gone. Can I read to you the list of Mount Rushmores that I came up with for this movie?
Yeah.
Okay. My Mount Rushmores that we could have done for Kill Bill. Movie Flautists, movie Wedding Rehearsals, movie Men with Good Hair, movie Record Store Owners, movie Silver Miners, movie Clogged Toilets, movie Eyebrows, movie Deaths by Snakebite, movie One-Eyed Characters, movie Sandwiches, movie Dead Fish, and movie Inappropriate Videos for Children. That's what I've got.
Movie Glasses of Water could have been a good one too.
Yeah.
No diabetes.
Yeah.
It is a good
Movie
sandwich,
trailers.
and it
Movie
is
trailers.
something where like I only will use like a giant like deli knife to get mayonnaise out now because of this movie.
That is unquestionably a top 4 movie sandwich of all time. He even cuts the crust off. And I do kind of like to put the mayo on the bread before the meat, but I'm open to it with what he does. And he's talking the whole time, too. He's not even focusing on making the sandwich. It's like second nature to him. It really makes you question Beatrix's logic and thinking that he wouldn't be a good dad, because that is amazing sandwich skill. I don't see her making a sandwich. I mean, I'm just saying.
He was a real bad daddy.
Soundbite.
That's creepy.
What were we doing?
It's the depravity.
Tripod of depravity. Stickman, Douchebag,
Okay.
Most Punchable Face.
Okay, so Zach's turn, I think.
Yep, it's Zach's.
I really love the Rocket pick for Douchebag. I kind of want to go with that. I really have I have respect for beer, and I have respect for that pick too. Todd and I have had several debates about who actually clogged up the toilet. We've talked about Rocket, at least probably a top 50 Tarantino character we've talked about at some point. She's great. I'm going to go with BB because she did kill Emilio, which is a pretty douchey thing to do. Punchable Face. Okay, he doesn't get punched, but I really want to talk about this character because we haven't talked about him a lot in real life, and I got to find him now. It's Bud's friend. Did he have a name? Oh, Ernie. Clark Middleton. That's a great performance too. Absolutely love that. That is to me a low-key top 3 highest war in Kill Bill Volume 2 is that character. I don't know. I mean,
Paul Giamatti. Ernie.
Paul Giamatti's too tall. I don't know if I could really see Paul Giamatti also drinking beer. But I would be intrigued by Paul Giamatti saying, "Help! Get me out!" With the ladder and the tomb. I don't know. I love that character. I feel like he probably hung out with. They probably met at the strip club where Bud was a bouncer, right? I mean, that has to be that. Listen, and then here's a bigger problem too. Why do we get a 15-minute anime sequence with Oren Ishii when we have so many of these other great subplots? Why couldn't we have a 15-minute sequence with Bud and his friend? That's all I'm saying, okay? That's why Volume 1 doesn't hold up to me. That's why it can't be the #1 Tarantino movie. All right, where are we at? Punchable Face and who else? Douchebag?
Stickman.
Stickman. Oh, I said...
It only falls apart when you talk, Zach.
I agree. I said the diplomat that gets shot by Oren in the limo because he's hanging out with 2 chicks. And these chicks want to party. And they freak out when he dies.
Yeah. He also looks like a clown.
Okay. And
all right, I did my job.
Face?
Yeah, I said Bud's friend. That was what
Bud's
that whole rant was about.
Gotcha.
In case you missed the point. Yeah. I didn't do it.
Well, you go on so many rants that I lose track of which ones are legit and which ones are just...
His rants have rants.
Yeah. All right. I'll go next. My stick man is Rufus because he's the man.
Yeah.
And my douchebag, it has to be Elle. I mean, she's the worst. She is the worst. My most punchable face is the guy who works at Hattori Hanzo's sushi shop, who is just credited as bald guy. He's the worst. And it's like he walks up and, do you understand? I mean,
in the middle of the day.
In the middle of the day.
He would not like.
I always get the sake. Yeah. You can tell Hattori Hanzo just wanted to smack him like over and over again.
Hattori Hanzo needed lessons in management from Larry about how to treat derelict employees that don't want to listen to him too late.
That would have helped. That would have helped.
Yeah.
Todd.
Stickman, I have Bill because his code name was a snake charmer, and all of the women are snakes, so he's obviously whatever. And I mean, I know that this was he actually wanted Bruce Willis for that part, which would have been amazing. I think that he fits that even more. Biggest douchebag, I have the Shaolin monk who didn't return Jaime's nod.
Yes,
he ended up dying for that.
Fall of the House of whatever. Start a whole war because of it.
Yes,
seemed fairly innocuous.
Yeah, some massacre of 60 monks or something. And my most punchable face, I'll say Elle because she already has an eye patch. She easily could have gotten that from a punch, and so she's more than a punch. She gets her eye taken out twice. So I think that qualifies as punchable.
You gotta be quite a douchebag to piss 2 people off that much.
Yeah.
Did Jaime teach Beatrix about how to punch out people's eyes too, along with the 5-point exploding heart technique?
Well, I think it's all just part of the close quarters, like punching the wall thing. I mean, I think that it just comes with the territory. Because when he punches through the wall, he goes through the wall and then he rips it back out the other way. It's like training you for that.
Also, another Rushmore that we could have is likable sexists, like Pai Mei. And racist and sexist.
That's fair.
Yeah.
All right. What is the best scene, Zach?
All right, so now we get to the best scene in the movie, which we've already talked about because it's such a great scene. And it's the scene when Bud shows up to the My Club or whatever. I didn't even know that club had a name. But
it's
the My Club. Conspiracy theory, Larry could have been played by Alan Matthews from Boy Meets World, William Russ. That's a great recasting, Todd. You know you'd watch it. My God, I mean the production design in that scene. I think he's got like all this money on his desk. He's got the cocaine. He has a shotgun in the background. How about the wallpaper? I mean, just genius, you know. And then the calendar time for Buddy. I use the line "asshole" right here all the time. That shit kicker hat. This is, I mean, come on. This scene makes me regret not having Volume 2 #1. This scene is better. This is the best Tarantino scene of all time to start with everything. And it is, what is so great about this scene is it's the exact same problems that I have with Volume 1. It doesn't need to be in the movie at all. And yet this scene is so great. It has no purpose in the movie at all, except to maybe establish that Bud is a loser. It's totally extraneous. and it's so perfect. It's unforgettable. I want to live in that world of the strip club, clogged toilets and all, but particularly just getting chewed out in that way. The moment I saw that in 2004, I'm like, oh my God, this is a great movie. That's when you know it right away that it's a great movie. I mean, you know, in the first 5 seconds, but that scene, that like declares it. It's a great movie.
You think Randy the Ram's been there to the Mile My Club?
Yes.
Probably.
That's a good conspiracy theory.
I like
Well,
that.
he says, fucking with your cash is the only thing you kids seem to understand. Larry's actually younger than Bud.
Exactly.
Like,
what does he mean?
I don't think anybody's called Michael Madsen kid.
He's the one with
That's like
the
calling
cash.
Beth Grant a kid.
I also, with my wife, I use "Be Somebody, Baby." When she asks me, "Should I do this?" I'm like, "Be somebody, baby." That's a great line. It's just so great. Everything about it's perfect.
What happened to that actor? Is he doing anything?
Oh,
he should come back for the movie critic.
Larry Bishop.
I feel like today that character would be played by Simon Helberg.
Maybe.
That's pretty good.
I think that's obviously a Nicolas Cage character, though. I mean, Nicolas Cage would hit a home run with that character, and I'd love to see it. He'd probably do too much with it, though. Like, I think it's a great restrained performance by Larry Bishop by just looking exasperated. And it's great. I love his look too. No one looks
exasperation
like
of the dumbest.
His last two movies were Adrenochrome and Adrenochrome 2. One of them he played Larry with guns, and the next one was Big Money Larry. So he's definitely got a niche he's carving out there.
How about
characters named Larry?
Nicolas Cage, Alan Matthews. I'll also add Wayne Diamond. Let's get Wayne Diamond in there for the.
I was gonna say he's a character he's an actor that the Safdie brothers would bring in.
Oh man. All right, I'm next for best scene. I will say it feels like Volume 2 has like the more like poignant moments of the whole thing, but I don't think anyone's going to go with the Volume 1 scene, so I'm going to go with the Volume 1 scene. And I'm going to go with right off the top, the fight with Vernita. Just starting the whole thing off with the fight scene, and like chapter 1 is my second kill, is just genius in itself. But then the way that it introduces everything, where she drives up in the pussy wagon, you hear the wah, wah, da, 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 and then she opens the door and they start fighting. Then you stop when the daughter walks in, and then the talk in the middle of the fight before she actually kills her, and then talking to her daughter afterwards. I mean, it's just such a great way. Like, you start with that and you go, holy crap, what am I in for? And I've always loved how the whole bloody affair starts with that whole thing. It's just awesome.
It is a killer way to start the movie.
It is great way to steal my pick. It's great.
You're welcome, Adam. Dad.
I mean, there's so many great scenes. I was actually going to choose a Volume 1 scene as well. It's the scene with Hattori Hanzo and his swords. I mean, pretty much after with all the sushi and stuff. But I mean, I had Hattori Hanzo. I think it was my number 3 minor Tarantino character. But once they go upstairs and the music is just flawless in that scene, and like you get the whole mythology of Hattori Hanzo, and then Sonny Chiba's performance is just amazing, and you get it all from his face. It's like he can't even speak the name Bill. He has to write it on the condensation on the window, because like it's just so. I mean, that scene it's all performance and music, and that is a amazing scene, and those swords do look really cool. So, and it's all in the attic, and you're just like you can sleep here. It'll take me a month to make the sword, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like, okay, she's going to be eating bad sushi for the next month. But I love that scene. Sonny Chiba is one of my favorite parts of the whole saga.
That is a great scene. That would probably be my favorite scene from Volume 1. And that reinforces my wife's argument going back. She said this movie's like Harry Potter. Like Voldemort, you can't mention Bill's name, apparently, in Volume 1. I thought that, okay, you got a point there. That's a good point. Well done.
You can't mention Beatrix's name in Volume 1 either.
That's true. Also, that was one of my trivia questions that I didn't ask. That was on the cutting room floor. How many times is her name bleeped? And I got I had 4 mentions of it. but it might have been more.
All right, Adam, best scene.
All right, best scene. I'm going to go to volume 2 here, and I think the whole truth serum situation here, when he's talking about the origin of superheroes and how basically she's a superhero, or always going to be Beatrix and not going to be her alter ego, as it were. I really like that whole how that played out, and that's just all David Carradine right there, and Uma, they're just listening and taking everything in. So great line, things of dialogue with the Tarantino put down there. So
I'll put another one in your cheek if you're stop. Bill is so awesome in that scene.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Clark Kent is a
top 10 great movie bars too, like bars inside a home. Like that's a Mount Rushmore, like best bars inside of a house.
And that hacienda apparently has its own private beach too.
Yeah.
All right.
Sunrise.
Regal quote, an underrated quote. Anyone have any they want to shout out?
It's got to be wiggle your big toe, right? That's got to be
that's a good one. That's it. I was going to say, bitch, you don't have a future. That would be an R-rated Regal commercial.
But here to fuck.
I had some other stuff written down for Regal quote. I will keep that shit kicker hat at home. And if someone doesn't pay for the concession, starts walking away, you come up to him and say, "You and I have unfinished business." I think that works out pretty well. And for
you're not lying.
Underrated line, I have a few. I just really like "I collect your fucking head," because that's a perfect way to put it. And Lucy Liu absolutely kills it in that scene. Another one is I always wanted to say, like, if someone calls me Terry, I always want to say, "Wrong brother, you hateful bitch." But I've just never been I've never been talking to somebody who I could call a hateful bitch.
Listeners,
I would do that.
We're pleading. Can someone call Todd Terry to make this happen?
Oh man, that's beautiful.
And my other one is Silly Rabbit Tricks Are for Kids. And now the thing with that is I didn't really put it together until this time that her name is Trix Kid. Her name is Beatrix Kiddo. So Tricks Are for Kids is saying her name. I never got that until this time. Am I crazy, or is that something that people
wow,
knew?
that's got that until right now. Conspiracy theory.
Mind blown.
No, I totally got that.
What you did? So
as soon as you know the name, it's like, oh, that's why that, like, the next time you watch Volume 1, that you should get that.
Well, I mean, I've seen these movies a lot, and I didn't realize that until this time. So it's a good line.
That's why that's a saying between the two of them.
I just always thought that was a really strange thing for Tarantino to put in his movie. So, okay.
We know what his favorite cereal is. That and Lucky Charms.
How many times does Bill call her Kiddo before her name's revealed too? I mean,
yeah, it's a little weird for somebody to call their lover by their last name. I thought that was a little strange. Once you know that.
Oh, by the way, did anybody else think that when her name is revealed and they go to the like roll calling, like there's the one girl that it sounds like her name is Melanie Whorehouse.
Yeah.
I think that's what they say.
It's Whorehouse, I think. I looked it up.
Whorehouse, yeah.
But it sounds like Whorehouse. Like, what school did she go to if there's a Beatrix Kiddo and a Melanie Whorehouse?
What is it? Is Whorehouse the last name of Melanie and Jackie Brown?
Ooh.
No.
What's her last name?
It's not Whore. It's something. It's not that. I'd have to look it up. I don't think it's said in Jackie Brown. I think it was in Rum Punch, so it's embarrassing that I would know that.
Man, that's amazing. That's amazing. Any other quotes?
No.
I've been trying to think of something else to go along with what you guys have been saying.
I have like quotes that I want to say, but I don't. I want to say them at the end.
Okay,
but
we can say those.
There are a great many quotes from this movie.
All right. If there were a sequel, there have been rumors of a Kill Bill Volume 3, like I said, for a long time, where Vernita's daughter and Bibi are like the main characters, and Beatrix is in the background.
Driver is back,
and she even says, "You know, if you ever come back, I would understand."
any prequel would be perfect. Like, I mean, anything with them as younger people. Yeah, I mean, I would be all for that.
It's got to be about Oren. I think that's the one.
I would want to see prequel about Elle and Pai Mei. Like we get a flash of it, but that must be hilarious to watch.
Well, or Bill as a younger person. How could he have possibly like destroyed his relationship with 3 different father figures? Like, what did he actually do to do that? I mean, it's unbelievable. Like the amount of backstory you get from Bill without actually knowing what he actually did.
Or how about the romance?
And how much does Bud play in that too?
How about the romance?
Bud aren't talking to each other.
The romance between Arlene and Tommy. That should be a movie in itself. Maybe like a little bit of high fidelity in it. You know, they own a record store. They hang out all day, talk about music. Like, you know,
really
Tommy
cool.
and his hair. Yeah, I would watch that. I would low-key watch that more than
Jack Black should have been Tommy, and then it should have just been in the same universe as High Fidelity.
Yes.
That's actually not bad.
Oh, it's great.
Except I don't know if Jack Black could have like frosted tips.
He could have
True.
frosted tips,
but he would have been just as despicable of a character for Bill to be looking at, saying, "You picked him."
Right. I was wondering, did anyone put Tommy as a potential douchebag? I think he's kind of like a subversive douchebag in a way. And I think the hair is meant to have some douchery to him. Also, probably could have been played by William Mapother. But I think he's a great character. I love Tommy. I would want to know, like, how did that romance happen? It seemed like it was very natural. And then here's the real question. I know we're kind of getting into conspiracies. I thought that the bride, if the bride doesn't know the song, How Could I Ever See You Again, is she really that knowledgeable about music? Is she really like talking about music in a record store? All her time is spent training. Is she really that knowledgeable? I don't know. It's questions you cannot answer. Did the record store have? Did they have a record by the 5, 6, 7, 8s? Is another question. I don't think they reached El Paso.
They came all the way from Oklahoma.
All right. Well, we're into conspiracy theories now. So, anybody else have any or flaws or anything outdated?
Yeah, I got a flaw. So, how come there was no security around the bride in her hospital room for Elle to just casually walk into? Because you would think they found this body who is hanging on by a thread in a big massacre shootout at the hospital. They would have, and they don't know who it is. So they do know who it is as like a fake name, but you would think you'd have some kind of like police officer at the front door, considering it had just happened. Because you're still you would like to ask that person questions about who's trying to kill you, who killed these other people.
Yeah,
that's fair. Yep. I was thinking, why do the bride's legs not work and her arms do?
Yeah, I thought about that too.
I think it's all the penetration. Oh, never mind.
There's the Adam went there moment of the podcast.
That should be an award.
All right, I have
no
some
sarcasm,
things.
No back talk, at least for the first year, Adam.
At least for the first year. I don't entirely understand how the trucker actually died from that pattern of blood. She bit his tongue and his lip, and then he dies like that. And then she shoves him off last. I don't really know how he actually died. I don't think he bleed out that much from that, but it is what it is. She doesn't sell the pussy wagon because she gets the pussy wagon, and then she goes to Okinawa. Apparently, has money to fly there and parking for months because she comes back and she's still driving the pussy wagon to kill Vernita Green. I want to know where she got all that money because I don't think Buck had that much cash on him. Maybe a little bit.
Between the two of them.
Yeah, I guess. I also think Robert Richardson shot this, and I think that the fights that are theorized between Vernita Green and Beatrix and Bud and Beatrix would have been amazing to watch shot by Robert Richardson in the dark with the way they describe them. Just like, man, those would have been classic scenes, but I guess the payoff that we get is just as good. I also wrote down, I want to know how long that gun has been in that box of cereal, because she like, does she take it out every so often because like it could potentially get found by a 4-year-old, and because like or like is that the box she was actually going to pour cereal out of? Like, is that old cereal? It's like the same with how long Bud has had that thing of M99 in his back pocket. It's kind of like in the 4-Year-Old Virgin where Andy, you find out he has a giant coin and an ear in his pocket all the time. It's like, I mean, does he just carry that around all the time just in case for 4 years? I don't know. It seems a little far fetched. And there's also a quote that that is said by Hattori Hanzo. I keep these for aesthetic and sentimental value. Yet I'm proud of my work. I am retired, and I feel like Tarantino says that all the time. I feel like he would say that about his movies. I'm proud of my work. It's aesthetic and sentimental value, but I'm retired. He does those kind of things. He puts himself into the thought process of the characters.
I like that. That's good. Zach, did you have anything?
Yeah, not all these are conspiracy theories. These are just points that I haven't mentioned yet. Some of them are conspiracy theories. Sophie Fatale today would be played by Naomi Merlant, the actress from Todd's favorite French movie. The Tokyo driving sequence. This is one of the disappointing things about Volume 1 watching again, because both Kill Bill movies had phenomenal trailers. In fact, there were several like different versions of the trailer because a trailer came out before it was split into 2 movies. And it's just playing that battle without honor or humility theme as they're driving down the streets of Tokyo. Maybe Todd knows what I'm talking about. And the actual movie Kill Bill Volume 1 has this kind of much goofier, like 70s, almost like from a TV series music. Not nearly as cool as the trailer when you see her on the motorbike going down the streets of Tokyo. I'm like, that was a missed opportunity, Tarantino. For me, I wrote down The Bride is Joe Flacco on the Browns. I don't know what I meant by that. The movie is like the opposite.
Was resurrected?
Yeah, it must have been, but I don't know why I wrote that down. Oh yeah. Also, kind of a weird choice when the Crazy 88 fights her. Like, how about some Ennio Morricone during that sequence? Why this goofy, retro pop sort of 70s music, and then nobody does it better. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, kind of goofy. The 5, 6, 7, 8s are a lot like Sex on Bomb. They have some real Sex on Bomb vibes. Pauline Kael would have hated this movie, which is kind of ironic because Tarantino loves Kael, but I think this would have been the Pauline Kael movie. This would have been the Tarantino movie that she would have absolutely ripped apart. For me, the way that Tarantino feels about The Matrix is kind of like how I feel about this movie. He thinks the second Matrix is so bad that it brings down the first one. I kind of feel like the first Kill Bill movie is kind of so bad it brings down the second one a little bit, which is why it's not my number one. And then this movie has the longest, most excessive end credit sequence in movie history. It's at least like 17 minutes long. And what was interesting about watching it again, great sequence, by the way, but when in the second of the 3 end credit sequences, when it's the black and white shots of Uma driving the car that apparently she crashed in real life because of Tarantino, there's no credits shown. I don't know if you guys watch this on Amazon Prime, but in the real version of the movie, there are credits during that scene. So like, what's up with Amazon? This is getting real degenerate, but I'll try and end it here fast. I guess the last thing I would say, Sophie's phone apparently has Old Lang Syne as her ringtone, which is kind of interesting. I remember it was kind of interesting looking at all the cell phones that were used over the course of this movie. And then I guess the last thing I would say, son, we got things to do. It's kind of a douchey move. Okay. I guess my biggest flaw in Volume 2 is I think Bill does a lot of mansplaining at the end of the movie. I would have liked a longer speech from the bride, not so much Bill. I felt like this was like the worst person in the world, how that old guy, how her former lover gets all the big screen time by the end of the movie, but she's the more interesting character. I had that exact same reaction watching Volume 2 this time. I'm like, can you shut up, you freaking mansplainer? Let the bride talk. She's been on this journey. We don't need to hear your stupid theories about Clark Kent. So I didn't have that reaction 20 years ago, but today I do.
Well, she tells the whole story about Karen and Lisa Wong.
Yeah, that's great. That's great, but it takes 10 minutes of Bill mansplaining to get there. I'm just like, let's calm down on the Bill mansplaining. We don't need it.
He was waiting for the truth serum to take effect.
Just
that's true, and he is. He is a douche. I like that he gets killed after that ridiculous mansplaining, but all the same.
You think Beatrix is the first person that he taught the 5-point palm exploding heart technique to?
Of course she was.
The first one and only one?
Of course she was.
Yeah.
That's what I'd go with. If he didn't teach it to Bill, then I think Beatrix is the only one that knows it.
I've always
he also beat the hell out of Bill when he went to like say, "I'm bringing you an American white woman." It's like Bill burned that bridge a long time ago.
I've always compared Beatrix learning the 5-point palm heart exploding technique to how at the end of The Departed, Jack Nicholson actually trusted Leo the most and gave him all the tapes, in spite of any sort of questions about his loyalties. Like Leo was so great in that movie, and The Bride is so great in this movie that obviously these people trusted them more than anyone else. And that is the number 7 greatest movie of all time. Terry has a number 7.
Oh shit!
I
my
didn't
bad.
do that.
Oh,
That's me. That's me. I'm fooling around over here.
I think that is my number 7 of all time.
Whoops! Ignore me.
Todd, you'll be happy to know that the Cardinals just beat the Eagles. So,
God damn it, the Cowboys are winning the Super Bowl.
No, Niners. Let's go.
It is my number 7. I only needed them to cover 17.5 because I teased it.
Yeah, well, they just won outright. So, 35-31.
Kyler Murray on the road as an underdog is like really good against the spread. So,
all right, let's wrap this up. LVP, MVP, and then we'll get to our quote of the day. Let's hear. I think I'm first here. My LVP is the studio interference. Let it be one movie. I mean, that would have been amazing. I haven't seen, like, it's out there somewhere, the whole bloody affair. I haven't seen it, but I would love to see it at some point. Let's put it back out in theaters like next year or something.
I don't think it's re-edited, is it? I think it's just plays the same way. I don't know if it's chronologically. That'd be interesting.
Well, my MVP is Sally Menke for the editing job of taking what Tarantino originally viewed as one movie and making it 2 masterpieces, like she did. So that's what I'm going to go with for my MVP is the editor that Tarantino always worked with until she passed away, Sally Menke. She is the MVP of this.
All
right.
Good.
Okay. LVP. I have the first responders on the scene of the massacre because they couldn't even tell that she was dead. That probably isn't good. Probably not a good job by them. And my MVP is I'll say Yohei Taneda, who is the production designer, which is just one of the many things that this movie is amazing at and should have been nominated for Oscars for. But the production design, especially in Volume 1, is like unbelievable, and you can tell it is all built. It's fantastic. So Yohei Taneda, MVP.
Adam.
All right, LVP. It's got to go with Boss Matsumoto, who for basically you're an important part of the story, but not enough to have live action sequences for. So we're going to relegate you to anime. The MVP is the soundtrack of the both movies. They're phenomenal songs and bits and nuggets. Kind of reminded me of very Edgar Wright-esque soundtracks. So
I think it's the most modern Tarantino soundtrack.
Correct.
Yeah. Zach?
All right. Well, I'm contractually obligated to go with Harvey Weinstein as the LVP of any movie that we deep dive of Miramax. But I would also say I'm just gonna say it. Sally Menke. I think it's kind of my LVP. I really had problems with the pacing of Volume 1. I thought it was long. It was like, let's kind of get to the point. I just really want to watch Volume 2. It's really not her fault, though. I mean, she died shortly after this movie. She was a great editor, so it's not really fair. And I'm sure Tarantino was the one who was, meddling with that sort of stuff. MVP is Ennio Morricone. He won his Oscar due to Tarantino. I cannot imagine Volume 2. I cannot imagine that Buried Alive sequence without his music. Adam said that the entire soundtrack. I mean, I can't really go wrong with that. I would also give a shout out to Malagueña Salarosa, which I sometimes listen to on my jog. I listen to a lot of this music on my phone. How about her when the bride is going from the bedroom down to bed? That is such a great record drop. all the music in this movie.
That was
but
in my
especially
use of
Daniel
song
Craig.
and film that we did, that Power Rankings.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to draw this podcast to a close. I think it exceeded
movies.
all our expectations. This was amazing. What a
We
great
will
way.
not split this into two, split
No,
3 months
no.
apart, right? No.
But
Okay,
what a
good.
great way to wrap up 2023. What a great way to ring in 2024.